Hello and welcome back to another video. Okay, so in this one we're going to be doing some patch lining and we're going to be installing a 12-ton manhole cover.
If you like this video, give a thumbs up and make sure to hit subscribe at the end.
Okay, so this is the area that our first patch liner is going to be going. So you can probably notice a couple of cracks on that last joint, and there's also a crack on this joint. So a patch liner is basically fiberglass resin and it's going to reinforce those joints and stop them getting any worse. So I've stopped the camera in the middle of where we want our patch to be. So I'm going to mark the cable with a bit of insulation tape. Now, I didn't realise till I watched this back how much insulation tape I put around the cable. And yes, I did wash my hands after doing this. Okay, so the long black tubey thing is called a packer. Now I've worked out where that black tape mark is on the camera, that's where the back of the patch is going to be. So I don't need to mark it on the rods, I just know that when I stop there, the patch is in the right place. So the two black marks on camera are where the cracks are in the joint. So if I put a meter long patch on that packer, that should cover the area that we want to patch. So the front of the camera head was just where the first crack is, and the front of the camera head now is where the second crack is. So we should easily be able to cover that. So I know this compressor's been sat around a little while, so I'm just going to blow the water out the fittings, because you get a bit of condensation in it. So whenever you do a patch liner, the first thing to do is put down a plastic sheet like this. This protects the floor from any resin. Now these come in this handy little box. I'll say the good thing about these kits is you get absolutely everything you need to do the job with them. So you get your gloves in there, your cable ties, your fiberglass, and the plastic tubes to cover the packer. So yeah, it's nice and simple. So if you watched my last video, you'll probably recognise this place. Now this is the same school we were at before doing the root cutting. So this is following on from that job. So if you haven't watched that one, go back and watch my last video. You can see the state of this drain before we started any work on it. So in every one of these boxes, you get one of these bags. It's got your gloves in it, cable ties. It's got the little bits of wire that hold your patch onto the packer as you're pushing it down the drain. And it comes with like a little scraper thing for spreading the resin around, which is quite nice. So we're going to get our fiberglass out in a second and we're going to lay it shiny side up. Now these pipe doctor kits come in 4 different sizes that I know of. So they do a 100mm, which is 4-inch pipe work, which comes in a 600mm length or a 1 meter length, and they also do the same sizes for 6-inch pipe, which is 150mm. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put these plastic tubes over the packer and cable tie them on. Now the reason for these is it stops the fiberglass resin patch sticking to the packer as the resin goes off. So it just protects your packer nicely. So these tubes just slide over. Now the first one, what I like to do is cable tie it on both ends. Now, there are other ways of doing this as well. Some people like to use cling film or shrink wrap. I don't really like that way, to be honest. This is what comes in the box, so I've always stuck with it. So we always get a bit of excess, so we just trim the end down like this. Then we put the second layer over the top of this. Now, what I do with the second layer, which is actually slightly different from what's in the instructions, is I put 2 cable ties on the front end of the packer. Now, what this means is when you pull it out, essentially that top layer inverts. It just makes it come out easier. And so it's one of those little tricks someone taught me at once and it's just kind of stuck with me. You'll probably see it when I pull the patch out at the end, you'll see that tube come off separately from the rest of the packer. So again, I'm going to cut the tails off the cable ties and just cut the end of that plastic sleeve back. Okay, so this is our 2-part resin, so these can be a bit tricky to get off, so I just push the end of this little sliding bit of plastic on something hard just to make it easier to get off. That comes like that, and then what we do is then mix that together. So another little helpful tip someone taught me once is wear 2 pairs of gloves. Now the benefit to this is your top pair get absolutely covered in resin. You can then take off the top pair, leaving the bottom pair on when you're sliding your patch down the drain, so you're still wearing a pair of gloves, but you're not covering everything in resin. So let's get our resin mixed up. Now, it doesn't really matter how you do this, as long as it's all mixed together. I seem to do it a different way every single time. Then we just cut the top of the bag off like this, and spread our resin all over the shiny side of the patch. So I'm now just going to fold this side into the middle. And I'm then going to cover this side with resin, as well as covering the rest of the shiny side that I haven't quite done yet. And then we'll do the same again, we'll fold this side into the middle to touch the opposite side, and then cover this in resin as well. And then we're just going to flip our patch over, and we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. We're going to totally cover this side, and then we're ready to get it on our packer. Okay, so we've lined it up in the middle, so what we're going to do now is just roll it round nice and tight. Now this is a bit easier to do with the 600mm patches, but basically what I'm doing is just trying to roll it on there without getting the plastic stuck in the crease, because that can make them a bit harder to get the packer back out at the end, and the plastic. So now it's time to put our wire around. So what this does is as you push the patch down the drain, it just stops the patch sliding on the packer. So all we do is put this round and just put 2 little twists in it, and then when we inflate it, that wire will essentially come off and just sit underneath the patch. And then this is the point where our second pair of gloves come in handy. So you take the top pair off, and then everything I touch from now isn't going to get covered in resin. So I'm just going to cut the tails back on the wire. And then we're going to get our patch into the position it needs to be in the drain. Now, as you can see, I've attached a rod. Now, this is a special type of rod that is also an air line. They're called air rods. They're brilliant for doing this kind of thing. So that's our patch in the position it needs to be in. I'm just going to take off one of these rods because I've put one too many on. And then we're going to inflate our patch all the way up to 2 bar and then leave it for 2 hours. Now, this time will vary depending on the weather, but in this case it was 2 hours. And then what I like to do is just stick a gauge in the end, and then that just makes it easier to monitor the pressure. So, it's been about 2 hours, so let's get the air out of the patch. Now, as I was saying earlier, you can see how that top layer of plastic is inverted as I pulled it out. So then it's just a case of doing a quick check with the camera. Now I'll put the video in at the end of the completed line because I've done a lot of patches here, so I thought why not put it at the end of the video. Okay, so I installed quite a lot of the patches yesterday, so we've now moved on to the next day. I've put a patch in already, and we're going to make a start on changing the manhole cover. So what I've done on this one is I've led the frame down on top of the cover, and I'm just going to cut the grass back before I do too much, because it's nice and easy to do it when you haven't got a hole to drop all the mud down. Okay, so I'm now going to show you why the score requested this cover's changed. As you can probably see, there's not a lot of cement holding this cover down, and the frame's a bit battered and rotten. Now the thing is, this is a lightweight cover as well, and being in a school, obviously the kids could lift it up fairly easily. That's it, as you can see there, my trowel fits straight down through the gap as well. So it was only really the mud that was holding this frame on. Okay, so I'm just going to scrape off any of the loose mud, ready to cement in our new frame. And then we'll just lift in our frame and see how it's going to fit. Now, when I say this is a 12-ton manhole cover, it's not 12 ton in weight, it'll take 12 ton. Now, I'm not entirely sure why, but the 12-ton covers are cheaper than buying a pedestrian cover. I can't really work it out, but if you can, why not put a 12-ton cover in? Okay, so I've left the concrete sitting slightly low. What we're going to do is place all the mud and the grass back on top of there, and then at the end we'll squash it all back down and make it look nicer. So I put a couple more patches in for the rest of the day, so I'm just going to pull this one out now. And then I'm just going to squash our mud back down. And then we can put our new cover on. So now the cover's done, it's just a case of going back to the yard. And so that was us done for another day. So I'm just going to get rid of the scrap metal and all the sand and cement out my van, just to give me a bit more space. So on the left hand side you can see our new cabin, and you can see my car that's decided it only wants to run on 3 cylinders. So if anyone wants to fix that, feel free to. Okay, so I took the opportunity to get changed whilst I was at the yard, because I'm going out to go see a comedian, Chris McCausland, who was absolutely amazing. So if you get a chance, go see him. Okay, so on to the last day at this site. So we're going back to finish off installing the patch liners. So here we go again, let's install another patch liner. I'll do this one nice and quickly because you get the general idea from the first one. Now, it's probably worth saying this one is a 600mm patch liner, not a 1 meter like the last one. So that's one patch taken out. I also had a second one going at the same time, and you can probably tell the cleaner was in there cleaning. So everything started overflowing. But it's clean water with a bit of bleach in it, so not too bad. So that's all of our patches complete, so the only thing left to do now is to stick the camera down there and have a look at the completed drain run. Now there's one on this joint here, but you might still see a few cracks. Now there's another one coming up here as well. Now the reason for this drain was surveyed back in 2021 and it's currently 2024. So some of these cracks have probably developed over that time. So from this recording we're going to go back to them and advise a couple more little bits are done. Whether they'll get done or not, I don't know. But as you can see, we've repaired the worst of the damage to this pipe. Now, I have put the Warthog back up through here again because there's still a couple of bits of limescale and a bit of resin stuck to the edges. I didn't record that bit just because of the battery on my GoPro, but yeah, that was done at the end. So there you have it, another week done. So if you like this video, please leave a like. If you could leave a comment, that'd be amazing. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It'd really help me out. And yeah, thanks for watching.
Please like and subscribe and leave a comment.